Welcome. Welcome to Shadows of Fear. This isn't just any place. No, here reality dissolves, blends with the impossible, and the shadows, yes, the shadows, find their voice. If you, the one listening out there, are the kind who doesn't fear the dark, who seeks out the cracks in the world where others dare not look, then you've come home. Subscribe, hit that bell, you know the one, because here, every episode is a door that opens, and you never know what's waiting on the other side. And hey, don't leave without leaving your mark. Share what you've seen, what you've heard. Who knows, maybe your story will be the next to whisper through our frequencies. Tonight, we step into a date that's peculiar. Very peculiar. The night of San Juan. Have you heard of it? Of course you have. Many celebrate it without really knowing what lies beneath. It's marked every year on the eve of June 24th. But what most people forget is that this night goes way, way back. Back to when humans looked to the sky, to the sun, and worshipped it as the source of life. Because yes, this night once aligned with the summer solstice, the longest day, the moment when light reached its peak before beginning to fade. And as often happens, Christianity came like a wave, covering everything. But it didn't erase it. It only changed it. The fire of those old pagan rituals turned into the feast of St. John the Baptist, though many of the rites remained hidden, waiting. And if you're in Spain, you know it well. The beaches blaze with fire, bonfires rise, flames dance in the wind, and people leap over them, plunge into the sea at midnight, write down their wishes, burn them, trying to cleanse their souls, renew their luck, leave the old behind. But there's more, because not everything is joy and cleansing fire. No, they say that on the night of San Juan, the border between our world and that other world thins. So thin that sometimes what's on the other side slips through. Legends tell of apparitions, voices in the dark, presences that can only be felt once a year. In Galicia, for instance, that ancient wise land, people prepare bundles of magical herbs to protect themselves from the magus, the witches who they say still walk among us. Rituals are performed to keep at bay what can't be seen but can be felt. And tonight, we're going to dive into that. We're going to open the threshold, because we have stories, testimonies, people who've lived through things they can't explain, things that still chill their blood to this day. Get ready, because tonight is that night. And have you ever experienced anything on the night of San Juan? Do you know a legend your grandmother used to whisper as the sun went down? Tell us, because here, your story might be the next to come alive. When night falls on June 23rd, it's not just nightfall. No, something ancient, something that sleeps beneath the skin of the world, begins to wake. The air shifts, the fire starts to crackle like it remembers. Thousands of flames are lit across the planet, and on beaches, in fields, in mountains, human figures gather. Not just to celebrate, no, but to take part in something far deeper. Ancient words we might not fully understand, begin to echo. Prayers, petitions, spells, echoes of those who came before. Because on this night, the sacred and the spectral brush against each other. The religious merges with the occult, and devotion is cloaked in mystery. This is no ordinary night. It's a threshold, a border, a tier in time. For centuries, maybe longer, humans have sensed that some moments are different. Moments when the world stops behaving the way it usually does. When the rules loosen and the impossible starts to make sense. And one of those moments is this one, the night of San Juan. Just as the sun reaches its highest, strongest, brightest point, it begins to wane. The longest day gives way to lengthening nights, light and shadow. And that tension, that duality, has always been fertile ground for the spiritual and for the strange. In countries like Spain, Portugal, Italy, and parts of France, fire takes center stage. But people don't light it just to celebrate. They light it to purify, to cleanse what's wrong, to protect themselves. And though it may seem like just another folk tradition, it's actually a remnant, a deep trace of something far older, far more pagan, far more powerful. It's said that on this night, the elements behave differently, that water, fire, wind become more alive, more awake, that certain doors open, some energetic, others maybe not so much. And this isn't just about adapted Christianity. No, not at all. The Celts, the Germanic tribes, the Slavic peoples, they all had rituals for this time of year, and they all echoed the same thing. On these nights, the world changes. It becomes more dangerous, and at the same time, more powerful. You have to be careful. A wrong step, a joke, a forgotten ritual, and you might not return home alone. Look, there are testimonies. Many. People who swear they've seen figures among the trees, shadows in the brush, or felt a cold so unnatural, so sudden, it froze their very soul. People who heard their names, spoken by a voice that didn't belong to this world. And this isn't fantasy. It's recorded in books, on websites like hiddenmysteries.net, in stories passed down by word of mouth, generation after generation. Sometimes the skeptics are the ones left speechless after experiencing it, because something is there. And speaking of figures, do you know who the Christian protagonist of this night is? Saint John the Baptist, the one who baptized in the Jordan. The one said to have been born exactly 6 months before Jesus. He's associated with water, renewal, cleansing of the soul. But the truth is, his feast was placed here, on this exact date, to absorb the ancient sun cults, the ones that were already here long before Christianity arrived. And that's where the collision happens between the old and the new, between the official and the hidden. Because in places like Galicia, Asturias, Castilla, the mix persists. People gather herbs like St. John's wort, verbena, male fern, and leave them soaking in water all night, to absorb the magic dew of San Juan. The next day, with that water, they wash their faces, to heal, to protect themselves from the evil eye and other things. Did you know some of those herbs were once called witches' herbs? Yes, it was said they warded off spirits, wandering souls, things that roam unrested. There are records, even church ones, that warn about what happened on the night of the 23rd. Processions with masks, chants in lost tongues, prayers not to saints, but to the moon, to the trees, to the stars. The church tried to erase all of that, but it couldn't. It only hid it, disguised it. But the mystery still lingers. And perhaps the most fascinating part is this idea of the border. This night marks a crossing, not just from summer to fall, no, from one world to another, from one way of seeing reality to another, deeper, more intuitive, more dangerous. Anthropologists like Mircea Eliade spoke of sacred time, those moments when time breaks and the symbolic takes over. This night is one of those moments, a rupture, and that's why so many people have seen things, felt things, because something manifests, because the veil drops. In the Alpujarra Mountains of Granada, for example, there are whispers of the Sisters of Silence, figures dressed in white walking among the olive trees as the bonfires die out. They're not human. They don't walk like we do. They're said to be the souls of women who died without confession, and they return seeking redemption. But beware. Never look them in the eyes. It's strange, isn't it? We often think the divine protects, but it doesn't always. Sometimes the sacred terrifies. The mystics called it the numinous, that sensation of facing something immense that fascinates but also horrifies. Some deeply religious people, when they live through this night, don't feel peace. No, they feel something else. Strange lights, voices weaving into their prayers, silhouettes appearing as they kneel, and a chill, like something has broken, like something crossed over. Jung spoke of archetypes, those deep forces that live within our collective unconscious. And on nights like this, it feels like those archetypes aren't just inside us. They come out, they walk beside us, they show themselves, they become tangible, but not necessarily comforting. So in short, the night of San Juan isn't just folklore, it's culture, it's spirituality, it's a threshold. Fire, water, herbs, prayers, everything hums with a different energy. And for a moment, we can see beyond the veil. And you Yes, you. Have you ever felt it? Seen something as the flames died down? Heard footsteps behind you when you could swear you were alone? Did you dare to make a wish and fear it might actually come true? Tell us. Here on Shadows of Fear, your story might be the next to awaken. The night of San Juan, a date etched in fire on the calendar of the strange, a night where the line between the real and the invisible all but disappears. Look, there's something ancient that stirs in the embers of those bonfires we light every June 23rd. This isn't just some local festival or an excuse to take a midnight dip in the sea. No, it's far more than that. It's a night loaded with rituals that go way back, to times we can't even imagine. They say if you leap over the fire, you purify your soul. And if you plunge into the water, you protect yourself. From them. From those presences that only dare reveal themselves when the world sleeps. And the flames sing. And many have felt it. That sensation that someone, something, is watching from the shadows. Temples, chapels, places that feel sacred by day, but on this night seem to open gateways. There are stories. I'm talking real people, with names, with lives, who claim they've seen figures gliding between the pews. Shadows with no source. Lights flickering without bulbs, without candles. And whispers. Whispers that don't come from any human throat. And of course, if we're talking about the night of San Juan, we can't ignore the ghostly penitents. That's one of the most chilling legends, especially in the north. Picture this. You're walking a path, deep in the night, and suddenly you see them. A procession. Silent, slow, carrying lit candles. Their chants, mournful and monotonous, float on the air. They say if you cross paths with them, if you're unlucky enough to see them, you may never be the same. You may be taken with them, doomed to wander the centuries as just another shadow. And that's not all. There are stories that sound like something out of another world, but people tell them with wide, unblinking eyes. Take this one. In Coy, Murcia, there's a cave. They call it the Cueva de la Encantada. Every year on the night of San Juan, a Muslim princess appears there. They describe her as beautiful, dressed in white, with golden hair that glows in the moonlight, and she's always combing her hair by a spring, as if she doesn't know time has passed, as if she's trapped in a spell, and no one dares get close. Not out of cowardice, no, out of instinct, because something deep inside warns you, if you cross that threshold, you won't come back. And then there's the tale from Caravaca, where another princess, this one named Fatima, was taken, so the story goes, by a dragon with 7 heads. 7, and she didn't die. No, the beast locked her inside a poplar tree, and her voice, her sorrowful cry, still echoes in the leaves. But only once a year. Can you guess when? That's right, but wait, there's more. On Isla Mayor, in the Mar Menor, the fishermen talk of an apparition. A young woman. They say she's Russian nobility, and every night of San Juan she's seen walking into the still waters naked. But there are no footprints, no sound. She appears and then vanishes. Who is she? Some whisper she's the wife of the Baron of Benifallo, that he murdered her and buried her right there. That her spirit never escaped that island. Stories, yes. Tales passed from mouth to mouth, from grandparents to grandchildren. But they all have one thing in common, the night of San Juan. That night when fire purifies or reveals, when water protects or damns. So now I ask you, have you ever felt something strange that night? Have you seen something you just can't explain? Because if you have, maybe, just maybe, your story deserves to be told here on Shadows of Fear. The night of San Juan. You know, that night when fire dances, when the breeze doesn't just cool you, it whispers, when something shifts, something opens. And we're not just talking about bonfires and wishes scribbled on paper. No, we're talking about miracles, about things that, no matter how hard you try to explain them, just don't fit within this world. Because when spring dies and summer draws its first breath, there's a moment, just one, when the impossible slips through the cracks, and it happens. For centuries, yes, centuries, there have been accounts. Stories from ordinary people, people like you, like me, who on that night experienced things they still can't speak of without goosebumps. I'm talking about sacred images, coming to life, statues that weep, crosses that bleed without wounds, and chalices glowing with a light that doesn't come from any lamp. In Galicia, for example, that land so full of megas and ancient wisdom, they speak of stone crosses that turn. Slowly, right at midnight, as if the spiritual world were reclaiming its place. They say if you pass by one of those crosses in total silence, you can hear something, a prayer, a whispered litany from another plane, as if the dead still longed to pray. And if you head to Castile and Leon, the stories are just as intense. In small rural chapels, only on the night from the 23rd to the 24th of June, some images of the Virgin are said to weep. Thick, pearlescent tears, as if they suffer for something only they can see. And listen, scientists have tried to explain it, sure. Humidity, condensation, surface tension, but in the end, they all leave the same way, with more questions than answers. Do you know the case from Extremadura in '83? That one was intense. Exactly at midnight, the image of a crucified Christ began to bleed. From the forehead. No one touched it, no trick, no gimmick. The priest saw it with his own eyes. For him it was a sign. For others, a dark omen. And listen to this. In Navarre, a whole family watched as the rosary hanging above their bed began to move on its own, swinging in the air as if an invisible hand were rocking it. No one breathed, no one spoke, just that movement and a powerful scent of incense. But no one had lit a thing. So how do you explain that? But it's not just objects. Things happen inside people. In the Valencian community, a girl, 8 years old, had never learned Latin, not a single word. And yet, that night, she began to speak it, fluently, in an ancient dialect. They recorded the whole thing, and when she woke up, she remembered nothing, only that she dreamed of a monk who whispered, "Time is a doorway." In Andalusia, there's talk of a well, cursed, but special. Because on the night of San Juan, that well changes. It doesn't reflect the present, it reflects the past. And more than one person swears they saw in that water the face of someone long gone. Some even heard voices, calling to them. From the bottom, Cantabria holds its own. There's a bell tower there, without any bells. But at midnight, it rings. And not everyone hears it, no, only those with an awakened heart. A young woman named Leire heard it in 2017. Her grandmother died 3 days later. It wasn't a coincidence. She knows it. And the animals, oh, the animals feel it. In the Catalan Pyrenees, shepherds say their flocks, for no clear reason, suddenly gather together. They freeze, fall completely silent, just as the first bonfires are lit, as if they sense something, something we still can't see. There are villages where they cover the mirrors on San Juan. Why? Because if they don't, those mirrors might turn into portals. A family in Cuenca forgot to cover theirs. And that morning, one mirror was found, cracked from the inside, as if something had tried to get out. And I can't leave out that story from Asturias in '91. A terminal patient got up, walked, spoke, ate bread with olive oil, and by sunrise, he died, just like that. As if he'd been granted one last full night of life, a farewell that only San Juan could give. A church in Galicia lit up on its own. No candles, no power, just a bluish glow, soft, enveloping the altar. 30 people saw it, and years later not one of them can explain it. And then, the sky. Because even the atmosphere seems to shift on that night. Rain that falls on just one house. Dense fog curling around a single grave. Winds that spin and spin around a virgin in procession as if something came down from the sky just for her. The most unsettling part? Many of these events, they're not solitary experiences. It's not someone telling a story alone. No, these are collective visions. Dozens of people seeing the same thing, feeling the same thing, living the impossible together. In Zaragoza during a beach dinner, everyone saw it, a white silhouette, glowing. Above the waves, they approached. No one was there, just the mist, as if the sea had wanted to show something and then hide it again. And on an estate in Segovia every San Juan night for 3 years in a row, a woman, a figure, walking between the trees, silent, ethereal, and always she vanished the moment someone got too close. They say she was a mother who died without finding her child, and that she's still searching, bells ringing on their own, doors closing gently, clocks stopping right at midnight. All of that is happening, and maybe it's already happened to you. Maybe this coming night of San Juan, it will. And of course, there are always the skeptics, right? The ones who say this is all suggestion, coincidence, faulty perception, that the brain plays tricks, that if someone wants to see something, they will, even if it's not really there. But there's something I've always found striking. The people who've lived it, they don't hesitate, they don't flinch, they don't blink. They tell you with steady eyes and goosebumps running down their arms. Because they know that, on that night, on the night of San Juan, something breaks, something opens, and what lies on the other side comes through. Because in the end, what is a miracle, if not that? A rupture, a something that shouldn't happen and yet does. And if there's ever a night made for that rupture, it's this one. A night of purifying flames, of portals that open, of ancient gods who, some say, still whisper from the other side, from the darkness that still surrounds us. Yes, the miracles of San Juan, those unexplainable things, those shared chills, they remind us of an uncomfortable truth. For all the science, all the data, all the progress, there are still corners. Corners and moments where mystery still rules, where a glance at the fire, the sea, or the star-filled sky can carry us literally to another place, to another plane. And you, tell me, have you ever felt like something or someone was watching you that night? Have you heard a voice that came from nowhere? Smelled incense where there was no fire? Seen a shadow in the water that wasn't yours? If the answer is yes, then this is your home. This is your place. Because here, in Shadows of Fear, the doors of mystery are never fully closed. And speaking of doors, let's move on to our next chapter, portals and transitions. Because if anything defines the night of San Juan, it's that. A night where doors open. From June 23rd to the 24th, that razor-thin line between the longest day of the year and the true start of summer. An ancient night, pagan, primeval, a celebration born in honor of the solstice, later adopted by Christianity and dedicated to St. John the Baptist. But the fire has always been there, because fire purifies, fire releases. Today we celebrate it with fireworks, midnight swims, and simple rituals we may not even understand, but that carries centuries of history, jumping over flames, burning the old, starting over. And if we travel to Galicia, well, you know what they say. There it's not just a night of wishes. They say a portal opens, literally, a threshold, a crack, a door to the underworld, and through it, the magas come through, and the demos, witches, demons, spirits who wait all year just to cross into the world of the living. And in some Galician villages, this isn't folklore. It's not a story for tourists. It's reality. And the elders, they still perform the rituals. They prepare the herbs, the waters, the fires, to protect themselves, to keep shut the doors that must never be opened. Because if the night of San Juan teaches us anything, it's this. There are borders. And that night, for just a few hours, those borders disappear. Are you ready to cross them? And we continue, friends of the strange and the sacred, diving deeper into this unique night. That night where anything seems possible. The night of San Juan. Because if there's one thing this date holds, it's that aura of legend. That ancient scent floating in the air between the smoke of the bonfires and the murmur of the sea. They say, and this is told in many lands, that on this night, the portals to other worlds open. Yes, just like that. They open, and through them cross beings that usually remain hidden from our eyes. Fairies, goblins, magical creatures who, according to tradition, may touch our fate, for good or for ill. Because in these hours, when the veil between realms grows thin, the legends multiply. There's one, very old, very dark, still whispered by the fire. The story of a pact with the devil. Yes, you heard me. According to this legend, on this enchanted night, the devil himself can appear. He shows himself to those desperate to have everything: power, wealth, success, and he makes his offer. A life filled with all they desire, in exchange for the one thing that truly belongs to them, their soul. And those who accept, those who sign the pact, will have it all in this life. But in the next, they're lost, condemned forever. And that's not the only shadowy tale tied to this date, because it's also said that there's a curse which only on San Juan can be broken. The curse of the werewolf. Yes, you heard right. It's said that those who've been bitten by one of these creatures are marked, cursed, and with every full moon, they change, they howl, they hunt. But there is one exception. One single night each year, the night of San Juan. Only on that night, the spell can be broken. Only then can they become human again. If someone or something saves them. But not everything is shadow. There are luminous beliefs too. Because they say that on the night of St. John, the waters, yes, the sea, the rivers, take on a special power, a power of fertility. They say that if you bathe in them that night, life blossoms. Children come into the world healthy and strong. That's why many couples who dream of becoming parents immerse themselves in those waters under the moon, seeking that blessing. And of course, if we're talking about wishes, love can't be left out, because love on the night of St. John. They say it floats in the air, that it can be summoned, that you can call to your soulmate with a little spell. You write their name on a piece of paper, throw it into the fire, and while the flames consume it, you whisper the right words. And if the universe is listening, love will come. It's also believed that herbs, on this night, gain extraordinary healing powers. Gather them under the moon, they say, and their essence will be stronger, wiser, purer, because the earth on that night speaks too. And though many of these beliefs come from ancient times, they're still alive today. Bonfires are lit. People still write down what they want to leave behind, failures, fears, and they toss those papers into the fire. They leap over the flames, and afterward, they dip their feet into the Mediterranean, as if closing one chapter and opening another. Because on this night, anything can happen. The paths of mystery remain open. And the legends? They still walk among us. And you already know, when the calendar points to June 23rd, something shifts in the air. Clocks seem to slow down, the sun sets with a softer glow, and as night falls, the world we know thins, becomes hazier, more porous. Because she arrives. The night. The night of St. John. And with her, the legends awaken. It doesn't matter what corner of Spain you're in. Every region, every valley, every cliff has a story to tell. Because on this night, and only on this night, the impossible becomes tradition. The stories we dismiss as fantasy on other nights, on St. John's night, they become possibility. In many regions, they speak of portals that open to the underworld, ancient doors connecting our world to others, invisible, parallel, magical, or dark. Through those cracks, they say, fairies and goblins emerge, creatures who, under the moon, walk among humans. Some believe these beings can grant wishes, but beware, they can also twist fates if not treated with respect. And so the line between blessing and curse, between the sacred and the pagan, between love and the abyss, blurs on the night of St. John. Want to attract love? There are rituals as old as the night itself. One of them, a poem. Yes, a spell written in verse, recited by the fire. They say if you speak it softly while burning a paper with the name of the one you love, the wind will carry your desire to the corners where that person's heart resides. Don't know what poem to use? Here's one, whispered for generations. Fire that dances on this unclaimed night. Devour this paper, carry my light. Let their soul feel the warmth of my flame, and at dawn may they seek me and love my name. But not everything on this night is sweet and glowing. There are also legends that chill the blood. Have you heard of the Maiden's Rock? In the north of Castile, they say that on this night, the souls of 7 young women, betrayed by a dishonorable knight, emerge from a stone still marked by their suffering. Sometimes they're seen dancing, other times weeping, but always seeking justice, or the dreaded tale of the devil's 7 horses. In some villages deep in Galicia and Leon, they speak of 7 black stallions, with burning eyes and manes of flame, that gallop in circles across a forgotten meadow at the stroke of midnight. They say where their hooves touch, the earth never blooms again, and that anyone who dares look them in the eye loses their mind. These legends, far from fading, come alive each year. Because St. John is not just a celebration, it is an ancestral echo. The echo of a time when humanity still walked among gods, and the night was a living, breathing realm full of secrets. In eastern Spain, for instance, some still swear the flames of the bonfires speak, if you know how to listen. Or that you can glimpse your future in the water for just a moment, if you gaze in silence with an open heart. In Cantabria, some elders claim that on this night, the dead may cross back into our world one last time. Not to frighten, but to say goodbye, to speak what they could not in life. That's why in certain rural homes, they leave out bread and milk, in case a familiar soul decides to return. Because everything, absolutely everything on this night becomes a ritual. From the simple act of leaping over the bonfire, to burn away the old and be reborn purified, to dipping your feet in the sea, as if stepping through a sacred threshold. Earth, fire, water, and air come together in a unique way on the night of San Juan. The elements align, the sky watches, and mystery reclaims its place. So now you know. When the night of the 23rd falls, when you see the first spark break the darkness, remember, you are stepping into an ancient zone, a territory of legend. And here at Shadows of Fear, we stay alert, because the stories haven't ended, and they never will. And when the fire dies down and the murmur of the celebration fades, another night of San Juan begins. The one that's not marked on calendars. The one with no music, no laughter. The one that moves among the extinguished embers and the dark corners of the countryside. The night where you are not alone. Because beyond the human rituals, there are other guests, presences that answer to no name, no time. Beings who wait all year for this single moment to walk among us once more. And it always begins the same way, with a heavy silence, almost touchable. A silence that isn't the absence of sound, but the presence of something not yet revealed. That's when the elders lower their voices, when the dogs stop barking and only whimper, when even the wind seems to pause, as if it were watching, waiting. Because on this night, they say, a threshold opens. Not visible, not tangible, but real. And through it return those who never truly left. One of the most feared is the headless horseman. He doesn't always appear, but when he does, he's impossible to forget. A horse black as the night itself, whinnying through lonely hills, and on its back, a decapitated rider with a flaming skull or a grotesque head dangling from the saddle. He doesn't speak, doesn't look, but he sees you. They say crossing paths with him is to witness death riding by. That someone close will fall ill, vanish, or pass away. And he's not the only one who wanders. High in the mountains, where the forest breathes mist and shadows seem to think for themselves, dwell the ones they call the Twilight Watchers. Tall, thin, with limbs longer than nature intended. You only glimpse them from the corner of your eye. Try to focus, and they vanish. But something lingers. A pressure at the back of your neck. A weight behind your eyes, a crawling certainty on your skin. You're being watched. They feed, they say, on attention. And if you look for them too long, if you speak their name aloud, they follow you. There are shepherds who don't return the same after their night watches. Men who saw floating lights descend the slopes like silent comets. White orbs, red, sometimes green. No source, no explanation. They're not flashlights, they're not drones. They are something else. Spirits, messengers, entities that cross the veil between realities on the night of San Juan? No one knows, but everyone agrees you must not follow them. And never, never let them surround you. And what about water? Water sings too. There are nights when rivers whisper, soft ancient melodies, feminine voices, sweet like lullabies, but tinged with a danger only the soul understands. They are the Undines, spirits of flowing waters, in love with the living. Seekers of souls. And if one of them calls your name from the water, run. Don't answer. Don't look back. Because if you do, they'll pull you under. Not out of punishment, but as an eternal lover. And still, there is something darker. In some villages, the old ones still place hawthorn branches at their doorways, not out of tradition, but protection. Because on this night the shadow beasts descend as well. They have no defined shape. They make no sound. They smell of neither flesh nor death. They smell of emptiness. They slither through fields, leave no footprints. But they chill the air as they pass and make your heart race for no reason. Some describe them as dark blots sliding between trees. Others don't see them, they just feel them. A faceless fear, a primal horror, as if something time forgot suddenly remembered we're here, alive. Venode. Because the night of San Juan is not only fire and festivity, it is also border, threshold, invitation. A night when stories aren't just stories, when warnings are not exaggerations. And the shadows, perhaps never truly left. From Shadows of Fear we warn you, don't stare too long into the dark, because tonight the dark might just be staring back at you. They say the night of San Juan isn't just a celebration of fire and joy, that when the sun sets and the embers begin to spark in the bonfires, something else awakens, something that does not fully belong to our world. In many towns across Spain, especially the oldest, the most remote, people don't talk about it openly. But if you sit with an elder, if you get them to lower their voice and glance toward the trees, they might just tell you. Because this night, the night of San Juan, is not like the others. It's said that when the veil between worlds thins, when the invisible feels almost touchable, certain beings cross over, and they do so in silence, hoping not to be seen. One of the oldest tales speaks of the headless rider, a man with no face, mounted on a horse black as the deepest night. In some northern villages, they swear they've seen him just before dawn, galloping along empty paths, a flaming skull in his hand, or his own head dangling grotesquely from the saddle. He says nothing, he doesn't need to, because those who see him, the legend goes, will soon have to say goodbye to someone. But he is not the only one. In the northern forests, where mist coils like a living serpent, there are whispers of the twilight watchers. Tall beings, thin, with arms too long to be natural, creatures you can only catch out of the corner of your eye. And if you try to look directly at them, they vanish. But the feeling that something, someone, is watching, that stays, stuck like a needle between your shoulder blades. They say that's how they feed, on our awareness. And if you follow them with your gaze, you're opening a door. To your home or to your mind. And the strangeness isn't just on land, it reaches the skies too. Many shepherds, men toughened by cold and years, tell of lights descending over the hillsides. They weren't flashlights. They weren't shooting stars. They were floating orbs, white, red, as if surveying the earth. Some say they're restless souls. Others believe they are visitors from another plane, one that only touches ours once a year. And if you turn to the water, if you approach the river, if you dare to listen, you might hear a song. Sweet, hypnotic, almost human. They say they're the Undines. Water spirits, women whispering from the depths, calling your name. And if you answer, you're lost. And then there are the shadows, not shaped like men, no face, just darkness that moves. In certain villages after midnight, no one goes out into the fields. Dogs bark at nothing. Horses grow restless. The air shifts. They say it's the shadow beasts. Entities that make no sound, but still press down the grass as they pass. And where they walk, the temperature drops. What they awaken isn't rational fear, it's animal fear. The kind you feel in your gut, the kind you can't explain. Are they real, or are they projections? Centuries of stories piled up in our shared memory? We don't know. But every year, when the night of San Juan returns, when the fires burn and the sea sings, the stories come back too. And here at Shadows of Fear, we listen to them all. Because even if you can't see them, the creatures of San Juan's night are still out there, waiting. They say there are roads that lead nowhere, or rather, roads that lead somewhere else. Time and again, in rural areas tucked between mountains and lands that smell of damp earth and silence, the stories are the same. People driving, usually at night, tired, alone, and suddenly there, right at the edge of the road, a figure. Still, human. But there's something off. It doesn't move. It does nothing. It just stands there. Naturally, you slow down, approach, try to see more clearly, and puff, it vanishes, as if it was never there at all. But that's not the most unsettling part. No, the real chill comes from those who say that upon seeing the silhouette blocking their way, they veer off, take a detour, follow another path to avoid it, only to realize the next day that such a road doesn't exist. It's not on any map. No one's heard of it. As if the path opened just for them, just that night. These apparitions, some call them presences in waiting. They don't attack, they don't speak, they don't move. But they don't leave either. They stay, trapped, repeating the same moment over and over, as if time broke for them, as if they can't move on. And if you head toward the coast, the stories change, but the chill remains. In San Juan, a small seaside town that smells of salt and old wood, there's a legend that never dies, the soulless sailor. They say his eyes are like shattered glass, his skin wet like he just rose from the sea, his clothes out of place, like from another century. He sometimes appears near a beach bonfire, staring into the flames as if searching for something long gone. He never speaks, never reacts, but if anyone dares approach, he vanishes in a burst of salt water, as if the ocean comes to reclaim him again. They say he was a navigator lost in a storm centuries ago, that his ship never touched land, and ever since, he searches. For a short time has erased, but not all things have human form. There are things that have no name, creatures, or maybe feelings that take shape through the fear of those who sense them. During the rituals of San Juan, some swear they feel something beyond the fire, a presence lurking among the trees, as if the forest itself were breathing, as if the mountain were watching. No shape, no eyes, no face, just a sensation, deep, primal, animal, that something is there. And whatever it is, doesn't belong to our world. Even inside your home, where you should feel safe, some nights something shifts. Footsteps in the attic, doors slamming on their own, clocks stopping, always at the same hour. During the night of San Juan, they say the veil between worlds grows thin, fragile, like a curtain stirred by the wind. And through those cracks, something can slip through. Especially in houses where pain still lingers, where secrets festered, where loss hung heavy in the air. Because emotions, when unspoken, leave doors open. And then there are those who never came back. People who went out that night and were never seen again. No trail, no clue. Phones dead, dogs confused, as if those people were simply erased. Some believe certain places transform on that night, that portals open, doors, and those who cross them don't die. No, they just stop being here. The night of San Juan, for many it's a celebration, joy. Bonfires on the beach and laughter dancing with the waves, it's jumping flames to make wishes, wading into midnight waters to cleanse the soul, to summon luck. But for others, for those who look beyond the blaze, who listen between the laughter, this night is something else. A threshold, a warning, a mystery. Because yes, while most people sing, dance, and cheer, some can't help but cast a furtive glance into the dark, as if they sense they're not alone. As if they feel that something or someone is watching, silently, from the other side of that invisible border between what is real and what is not. And of course, this could all be folklore. Old tales meant to scare children, grandmother's stories, or maybe not. Maybe we just don't know how to see, or don't want to believe there are things beyond our understanding. Things that appear only when the veil is thin enough to let them through. And on the night of San Juan, that veil trembles. And you? Tell me, have you ever seen something you couldn't explain on that night? Did you feel that chill for no reason, that sudden silence that says everything without saying a word? Tell us, write it down. Because maybe, just maybe, you're not as alone as you think. And who knows, maybe your story will be the next one we share here, in Shadows of Fear. But why that night? Why San Juan? Look, it's not a coincidence. For centuries, ever since our ancestors danced around the fire believing it would keep evil away, this night has carried weight. And not just symbolic weight. Something deeper. Almost genetic. An echo in the collective memory. Because we're not just talking about a celebration, we're talking about a spiritual inheritance. A ritual that, in its oldest form, was meant to protect us. From what lies outside. And from what we carry within. The bonfires, the midnight swims in the sea, the circular dances, they weren't just for joy. They were shields. They were invocations, ways to draw in the good and push away the other, the nameless, the unseen, but deeply felt. And be careful, these aren't just local tales. Across many regions of Spain, real documented testimonies have been collected. People who swear they've seen spectral figures moving through the pews of ancient chapels, shadows gliding silently, whispers emerging from nowhere. Lights flickering without source, without reason. And the most unsettling part, that feeling. The one you can't record or measure, but everyone knows. The skin that prickles, the heart that races just a little faster. As if something unseen but very real had stepped right behind you. That too is San Juan. That is also us. Because these stories don't die. They linger, they transform. They blend with the celebration and the fire. And live on in the memories of everyone who, even just once, dared to look beyond the flames. Some legends aren't told, they're whispered. Not written down, but carried like the wind through old trees, or like footsteps that leave no mark. And one of the oldest and most feared is the tale of the phantom penitents. They say that during the night of San Juan, when fire and water cross paths with the invisible, they appear. Restless souls, hooded figures, white as the wax they carry in their hands, their faces hidden. They walk in silence, or worse, chanting. Mournful, ancient, as if each note carried centuries of pain. They walk in procession, yes, but not like the ones you see during Holy Week. No, this one is different. This one foretells death. In Galicia, this ghostly march has a name, La Santa Compañía. And when you see it, or even just feel it passing near, you better start praying. Because its presence is a sign that someone close, will soon leave this world. But that's not the worst part. The worst is that if you cross their path, you may not return. They say that those who see them risk being taken, joining them, wandering forever. Just another shadow among the trees. And that's just the beginning. Because the night of San Juan also holds stories that have nothing to do with processions, but everything to do with invisible prisons. In Coy, a village in Murcia, they speak of a princess, a Muslim princess, who appears once a year, only on this night, at the cave of the Enchanted One. They say she's condemned to brush her golden hair beside a spring, trapped in a loop of time. Always the same scene, always the same night. Like a tape that rewinds itself. And those who get too close, those who dare to truly see her, can be pulled in, dragged to another dimension. And in Caravaca, another story, another sorrow. The Moorish Princess Fatima, abducted by a dragon, but not an ordinary one. No, this one has 7 heads. 7. And Fatima's prison is not a tower, not a cave. It's a poplar tree. A tree. On the night of San Juan, her voice, her weeping, slips through the branches, through the leaves, searching, pleading for freedom. But no one has been able to help her, because no one knows how. And if we turn to the sea, The waters hold their own ghosts. On Isla Mayor, in the Mar Menor, sailors, fishermen, men weathered by salt and storm have all told the same tale time and again. They see a woman, young, pale-skinned, naked, bathing in the waters as if unaware the world is watching. And when they approach, she vanishes. They say she was the wife of the Baron of Benefayo, that he killed her, buried her on that very island. And now, every night of San Juan, she returns, to feel the water, to remember what she once was, to seek justice, or perhaps vengeance. These stories, they're not in books, they live in voices, in whispers from grandparents, from fishermen, from shepherds. They're passed down, like a secret, like a spell. And all of them agree on one thing. That night is not like the others. That night, from the 23rd to the 24th of June, something changes. And you? Have you ever felt that you weren't alone? That someone was watching you from the shadows while everyone else celebrated? Have you heard a lament among the trees, a song with no clear source? Tell us. Your story might be the next one we bring to life here in Shadows of Fear. And if these tales stir something in you, if they spark that flicker of curiosity we all carry deep inside, support us, like, subscribe, and leave us a comment, because thanks to you, this flame stays alive. The night of San Juan. Ah, that night that seems to glow with a light all its own, doesn't it? That blend, so uniquely ours, of joy, ritual, and something else. Something not always seen, but always felt. Because we're not just talking about jumping over bonfires or whispering wishes to the sea. No, we're talking about a night where time bends, where the old returns and the invisible steps into view. For centuries, yes, centuries, this night has witnessed the unexplainable. And it's not just me saying it. There are testimonies, real ones, from people who saw things, who felt presences, who still don't know what happened, but who know something did. In many parts of Spain, from north to south, coast to inland, people have told the same stories. Spectral figures, shadows moving inside empty chapels, lights that flicker without bulb, without lamp, without source. They just appear and then vanish. And that, well, that would be eerie enough. But there's more. Some speak of a presence, that weight on the chest, that hair standing on end for no reason, that compulsion to turn around because you feel that someone or something is standing behind you, breathing. And when you talk about it, many look at you strangely. But others simply nod, because they felt it too. And amid all these personal experiences, there are legends that echo, as if the past itself refuses to die. One of the oldest and most feared stories is that of the phantom penitents, souls that walk in a line, in silence, in procession. They carry candles, yes, but their light gives no warmth. It's cold, as if it came from nowhere in this world. In Galicia, this apparition is known as La Santa Compaña, a warning, an omen, because if you see them or hear them, someone will die soon. And the worst part isn't that. The worst is this. If you cross their path, you might be the next to walk among the shadows. And if ghostly processions send chills down your spine, wait until you hear about the princesses trapped in time. In Coy, for instance, there's a cave. They call it the Cave of the Enchanted One. And there, every night of San Juan, a figure appears. A young woman, Muslim, dressed in white with long golden hair. She combs it, always combs it, beside a spring, silently, on repeat. A scene that plays out like a curse. Locals don't get too close, because some say that if you approach her, you might never return. You could be trapped with her, in another time, in another place, in Caravaca, another tale, another pain, another prison. The Moorish princess Fatima, taken by a dragon with 7 heads, 7, and not locked in a tower, but in a tree, a poplar. And on San Juan, when the air is thick and the forest seem to whisper, you can hear her lament. She pleads for help, pleads to be freed, but no one answers. No one knows how to break her vegetal spell. And if the sea seems like a safe place to you, think again. Because on Isla Mayor, in the Mar Menor, some have seen the impossible. A woman, young, Russian, naked, bathing in the water, And when someone approaches, she vanishes, like mist. They say she was the wife of the Baron of Benefaio, that he murdered her, buried her there, and that her spirit has never stopped seeking freedom. All these stories, they're not just tales, they're echoes. Echoes from the past, of what once was, of what maybe still is. And always, always, they return on the night of San Juan. So tell me, have you ever lived something like this? Have you felt the veil tear, if only for a second? Share your story, write it. It might be the next one we tell, here on Shadows of Fear. And if these stories stir something inside you, if they make you look at the night with different eyes, you know what to do. Subscribe, comment, support us, because your voice is part of this journey. And thanks to you, this fire keeps burning. But what if I told you that the night of San Juan doesn't always end when the sun rises? Because yes, we know it. It's a night of fire, of water, of rituals from another age, almost another world. But there's something rarely spoken aloud, that in some cases, in some corners, that night never really leaves. It lingers, like an echo that won't fade, like a whisper that won't quiet. Think about it. Do you really believe all of it? The dances, the midnight swims, the wishes, the bonfires, is just tradition? No, my friend. It's not just folklore, it's protection. An ancient way, so very ancient, of closing a threshold that opens every June 23rd at night. A threshold to something else. And there are people like you, like me, who swear that what they saw, what they felt, didn't disappear with the morning light. That something slipped through the cracks and stayed. Shadows in empty churches. Figures gliding through pews as if searching for something or someone they lost centuries ago. Lights flickering without bulbs, without reason. And that feeling, you know it. That static in your skin, that I'm not alone, even when no one's with you. And then, of course, the familiar ones. The Santa Campagna, the phantom penitents. They don't walk to the beat of a modern clock, but to the rhythm of impending death. Because if you see them, if you hear them, something's coming. Something dark. Something final. And if you, unfortunately, cross their path, you might never come back the same. And there's more. There's always more. The princess who combs her hair beside the spring, trapped in her infinite loop inside the cave of the Enchanted One, she doesn't distinguish between night and day. She repeats, always repeats. And what if you get too close? What if that hypnotic combing draws you in? What if you, too, slip outside of time? And Fatima, her wailing doesn't obey the sun. She cries from the poplar even when the sky is clear. Even when the world pretends everything has returned to normal. But nothing has returned. Nothing is normal. In Isla Mayor, the waters remain silent during the day. But the fishermen, those who know the sea like a mother, they know something floats in that silence. Something waits. Because that young Russian noblewoman doesn't just swim, she searches. And every year, someone new sees her. And every year, she vanishes, without making a ripple. And now comes the question, the most uncomfortable one of all. What if some people never make it back from that night? What if, in truth, some don't? Because the stories keep coming, the testimonies pile up, and the dates match. People who simply vanish. No sign, no body, no explanation. And maybe, just maybe, they're not dead. Maybe they're still trapped in the night of San Juan. And you, listening right now, have you ever felt that something didn't end with the sunrise? That part of you stayed staring at the fire, even after the flames died down? Tell us. Write it. Your story could be the next one we bring to life. Right here, where the night never ends. Here on Shadows of Fear. And so, dear seekers of the unseen, we reach the end of this journey cloaked in shadow, wrapped in mystery, a path through the hidden trails of the night of San Juan. A night when the borders between what is and what was, between what's real and what's impossible, seem to dissolve like smoke under the moonlight. Because what we've told you today, these stories of apparitions, ghostly processions, princesses trapped in time, and whispers inside empty churches, they're not just scary tales. No, They're witnesses of something more, of a connection, deep, ancient, that still reaches us, that still touches us. And here's a thought I can't shake. What if the supernatural isn't as far away as we think? What if maybe the extraordinary happens more often than we admit? We've just learned to ignore it? Maybe, just maybe. What we call legends are simply poetic ways of explaining something we can't control, something that sees us, that feels us. And that on nights like this dares to cross the threshold. So next time you feel that cold breeze when there's no wind, that creak that didn't come from the floorboards, that gaze piercing through you even when you're alone, ask yourself, what if I'm not as alone as I think? And now, we close this special episode of Shadows of Fear, thanking you for being there, on the other side, listening, feeling, and maybe remembering something you'd rather forget. If you've ever, during a night of San Juan or any other, experienced something you couldn't explain, something that still sends shivers down your spine, share it with us in the comments, because your story, yes, yours, might be the next to come alive in this space of lost voices. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell, because we're still here, every week, searching for what hides behind the veil. Your support isn't just important, it's what keeps this flame alive. Until next time, and remember, in every shadow, a story may be hiding, waiting to be told.